He controlled the state, basically. Some of you may remember, not the last one before him, Lieutenant Governor of Tennessee, what was his name? John T. Wilder, grandson of the same man we're talking about. He lived in Memphis, not here, but I mean, the group stayed on. You've heard the name Probasco? That was Wilder's banker. He was a great-grandfather of the one that runs the bank now. Patton, Chattanooga Medicine Company and all, that was one of Wilder's men. He had two Montagues. All of these names go back to them, except Lupton. Lupton married one of Patton's daughters, how he got in. But as time passed, the veterans of the war formed a fraternal organization. They called them camps. There was the Confederates had the United Confederate Veterans, and the Federals had two camps of the Society of the Army of the Cumberland. It was the Moccasin Bend Camp and Lookout Mountain Camp. 1910, they joined and they named the new organization the Mountain City Club, which, ever heard of the Mountain City Club? It's still around today. That's where the mayor of Chattanooga is selected. I say selected, not elected, 6 months before the election. That's why you can say Chattanooga's got the best government money can buy. And it's been that way for 150 years. And for a while, Wilder's thing worked out. Him and his men all got rich. And it was a very liberal place. I mean, Chattanooga was one of the freest places in the country. Blacks could come from anywhere and get jobs and live fairly good. In the 1870s, police were all blacks. In fact, the occupation army was the 5 regiments of U.S. colored troops. But as time passed, a reactionary group, racist, calling themselves 3/4 of the businessmen of Chattanooga, formed a thing of changing the government. Now, in the original government here, it was set up by wards. Each ward elected an alderman who served it, and they made up a council. And the wards was made up of the people that lived in it, and there was majority black wards, so they elected black officials. I mean, there was black members of the state legislature, there were black bankers, I mean, there were prosperous blacks here then. But this group started agitating, and they used this finger a lot. There was a lot of lynchings. There was 2 people hanged on the Walnut Street Bridge. There was 1 person hanged on the North Chattanooga Bridge. 1 person actually hanged inside the jail. They couldn't wait to get him out to a bridge. They just hung him in the cell. In Trenton, Georgia, 12 miles south of here, there was the only case in history of an all-female lynching group. This was a group of church women who went out and hanged a guy after church one day. And also, the Convict Lease System came into being. Under the Convict Lease System, convicts were available to capitalists for labor. You could just apply, and if you had the right political contacts, you could get 100 convicts for 9 work, and you fed them what you wanted to feed them. If they starved to death, I mean, you could get more. This was much, much worse than slavery. You know, slaves cost $2,000 to $3,000 a piece. You got the convicts for nothing, and you worked them to death. And this was so bad in Tennessee that in the early 1900s, free miners couldn't get a job because all the mines used convict labor. So the free miners raided the convict barracks and liberated the enslaved miners. And they brought the military in, and there was a war called the Cold Creek War that had substantial casualties on both sides, and this ended with the Tennessee abolishing convict labor, but it stayed on in Georgia up until fairly recently. And they still have elements of it in Alabama now. And Arizona's bringing it back. But that was how Chattanooga, when they changed the government, there was no more wards, it was all at-large voting. This meant that the majority elected all the commissioners. Anytime blacks got to be too big in Chattanooga, what did they do? They annexed the rural areas and bring in more whites. What's Littlefield wanting to do now? Annex. And it continues. I'll get back to that a little later. But anyway, the early 1900s was grim in Chattanooga. Thousands of blacks left the area. John Lovell, a gambler and entrepreneur, so to speak, did a lot of things. He helped organize blacks and went to find a free place to live. Many groups of them, through his auspices, got to California. 2 groups went to Mexico. And when I was living in Mexico, I found some people down there that look just like you. But they're Mexican citizens, they speak Spanish, and they remembered our grandparents, came from Chattanooga a long time ago. A man named Lovell helped us get out here.